I'm sorry, the angel of his presence was talking to me. Well, that doesn't look right. This is, I believe, part 3, chapter 21. I missed chapter 20, by the way. I'm going to have to redo it after this one. Translations of the Hebrew Bible. Again, chapter 21 comes in different sections until you finally get to Isaiah 52 and 53 with Rashi's commentary, which of course has already been done. All these have been done before. This is the third time. But even those that were done the second time, just 2 weeks ago, are already showing wear and tear. And I don't mind doing this. I just wish the upload to YouTube wasn't so slow. No, it's hours. 30 minutes can take you over 2 hours. And let's say I get 6 videos out of what I'm doing right now, before lunch. It can take all day. It can take 12 hours, 10 hours, 8 hours before I post 6 or 7 videos. But it's worth it. I mean, I really don't like looking at those torn up videos. And apparently, God had a purpose in that. He knew how bad they were. I think what he did, you really want me to say this? I guess he does. That was him moving my head over here in his power. He wanted to set people like Tovia Singer. I can't believe you're doing that. And Jews for Judaism, Kravitz and Michael Skoback, for them to go to them, if their people are telling them, look, there's somebody out here you need to look into. You're responsible to your flock. If God's acting in the world and he's doing it for the Jewish people, you need to check it out and tell us what you think. Because it's kind of above our pay grade, as they say. And I think those videos would throw them back and say, nah, if God was with that man, those videos wouldn't look like that. And see, that's when you think you know too much. You have no idea the things God will do. You don't have any idea of his personality. And believe me, he's from one end of the spectrum to another. All goodness, right here, and then what I get in the fire refinement, the backside. It's tough. He's hurting my shoulders right now because he knows I want to get this done. Because if I don't get to Israel and take him with me, see, he didn't go to Israel without me. You tell you rabbis that. God's in Texas because of the false teachings of Judaism. Nobody will believe who I am. Well, this is when he said it was going to happen. He said he was going to do it, and he's doing it. What's so hard to believe? Do you really believe it, rabbis, Jewish people? Do you really believe the things that Moshiach's going to come? Or you don't believe the righteous servant is going to come as Moshiach because you are taught otherwise. Falsely, I might add. Okay, picking up chapter 21. Again, it comes in segments. This segment, translations of the Hebrew Bible. Rashi's commentary on Isaiah 52 and 53, translated from Hebrew to English in a translation of the Tanakh by Art Scroll, very famous, an imprint of translation, books, and commentaries from an Orthodox Jewish perspective, published by Masor Publications Limited, can be found online and as well at Shabbat.org. And the translation of the verses in Rashi's commentary are identical at our scroll and Shabbat. My commentary on Isaiah 52, 13 through 15, in quotes, and all of Isaiah 53 proper, is based on the translation of the Jewish Publication Society, who began to combine a new edition of the translated Bible and the concept of a completely new translation. Gradually took hold, and the task was begun in 1955. Sputnik went up in 57, when I was born, and the Jewish people had created a state in 1948 and were making it bloom again. That's Jeremiah 31. In 1955 and published in 1985. That's the one you want. Before 1985 edition, even the Jewish Publication Society had the same problems that Art Scroll, Jews for Judaism, Tovia Singer and Outreach Judaism, same problems. They don't have the quotes. And they put a real dent in Jews for Judaism, not knowing them. And Tovia Singer, his commentary that Isaiah 53 is Israel is so ludicrous, it barely bears comment. I know, he's got 66,000 followers. Anything he says is gold. That's why me and God are still in Texas. And he's not coming to Israel without me. I am his prophet like Moses, his visible representation. God is throughout the world. Okay? But you don't know it if he doesn't have a man, a guy, like he had Moses. And all the prophets. Joshua. All of them. The Leningrad Codex is the oldest complete edition of the Hebrew Bible. In existence, it dates to around 1008 to 1010 AD. However, the Leningrad Codex, although complete, is not the best quality Hebrew manuscript. Although carefully handwritten, it was corrected against the Aleppo Codex. And the Aleppo Codex remains the best quality manuscript. The Leningrad Codex, however, is so reliable that it is the Hebrew text from which nearly all modern translations have been translated. But they've gone through some things. Sometimes it's Hebrew to Greek, the Septuagint to English, or there were people there were translations from Hebrew to English, and they didn't think it was good enough, and they started working on it again, which is what I think everybody I'm talking to are dealing with. And they lost the quotations, which are extremely important. The JPS found them. Why can't your rabbis find them? Tovia Singer can't find them. Kravitz and Michael Skoback, Jews for Judaism, they can't find them. The word exalt, they use in their commentary to say Isaiah 53 is Israel. They use it in their commentary, and they call it world exaltation. Chapter 13 of 52, which begins the quotations. Now, those quotations are for the righteous servant, and that would be me. Read the rest of Isaiah 53. That's not the people of Israel. But I'll get into that. And just as Matthew did in the Christian New Testament, there's things they avoid and step past, like crushed with disease. Well, the Jewish people is one man Israel. All the Jewish people is one man Israel crushed with disease. When were all of the people as one man Israel afflicted by God? I was. Born disfigured, afflicted. King David would have nothing to do with the lame, crippled, blind, deaf, mute. He had nothing to do with them. Because why? Because in his day, that meant God didn't like you. Well, he must have some affinity for me since I'm doing these things, and I was clearly afflicted at birth, and he takes credit for it. He says, Keith, I removed your right breast, and I gave you a withered right shoulder and arm for my purposes. And when it's for God's purposes, there's nothing he won't do. And it doesn't bother me one bit. I wish I hadn't been born. I was quite an athlete, even with this bad arm. But, it works. I throw a baseball with it. I shoot baskets with it. But I can't lift with it. I bowl left-handed because the ball's too heavy, 16 pounds. I have been unable to find the source of the Art Scroll and Shabbat translation. This is God now speaking. That was me. Of course, I know all this information. It was taught from me. I typed it and I put it on video 2 times already. This is the 3rd time. And Shabbat translation of the Hebrew Bible into English. It is not directly from the Leningrad Codex or the Aleppo Codex. It could be from here it is finally, a Masorite text derived. This is nothing that happened that could have lost the quotes. A Masorite text derived from the Leningrad Codex or the Aleppo Codex or even the Greek translation called the Septuagint, later translated to English, that is the source of the Christian Holy Bible, which is the chosen of God. That's their Bible. God wrote it for them. He did want the Gentiles to get their hands on it, straighten them out a little bit. But they got no business attaching it to the New Testament, saying it's prolific of Jesus. They ought to tear that book off if they want to be in any right standing with God. The fact is, it won't help. If they want to see heaven, every Gentile on the face of the planet, they have to convert to Judaism. Now, wouldn't that be a hoot for the Spanish Inquisition? Convert, or we torture you and kill you. That's what Spain did, and that's what the Holocaust was about too. Isaiah 53:10 is the one verse that cannot be proven by witnesses as having occurred and is the most controversial. With the translation of our scroll and Shabbat, like the Christian Bible, 2 of the most important parts of the Isaiah 53:10 translation directly from the Leningrad Codex are different, completely changing the meaning and purpose of this misunderstood verse. The Art Scroll and Shabbat translation is, in quotes, and the Lord wished. I don't think the Lord wishes, people. The Lord decides. Wished to crush him. He made him ill. Okay, go to verse 12. He was exposed to death. Okay, so ill It's really a disease. That's how the JPS reads. It made him ill. That's what the Christians use. Well, does anybody know when Jesus was ill? I don't. If his soul makes itself restitution. My soul can't talk. I don't know about yours. I'm going to assume, we're just going to go with, it means the person that we're talking about. The righteous servant. If he makes restitution, he shall see children. He shall prolong his days, long life. And God's purpose shall prosper in his hand. Maybe. Does that sound like Jesus? What did he ever say he was guilty of? How many children did he have? How long was his life after 30 when he was crucified? The Christian Holy Bible, King James Version, translation is, yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. Fire of refinement will put you to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed, he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. The Jewish Publication Society translation is, and God says you can't find a better translation on the market. But the Lord chose to crush him by disease, and he's exposed to death. That, and I was, that if he made him 4 times, that if he made himself an offering for guilt, he might see offspring and have long life, and that through him the Lord's purpose might prosper. God had Isaiah write Isaiah 53, just as he had Moses write the Torah, at his command and direction. The multiple purposes of how Isaiah 53 is written were no more possible for Isaiah to know than Moses could know of the multiple purposes of the Torah and the 613 laws for the Jewish people derived from its books. Isaiah 53 was written with the knowledge of God that the Gentiles would take. Oh, don't think he doesn't know everything from beginning to end. Would take the book of the children of the book, Jewish people, and call it their own. That they would do it based on the animal, sacrificial, atonement, and worship laws of the Torah. Isaiah 53 was also written for the day of the Lord and his vindication. Not peace on earth, his vindication of the Jewish people for all the wrongs the world brought upon them by the teachings of Christianity. His wrath passed to the Christians from the Jewish people in Isaiah 51, and 52 and 53 is here to be his voice, his representation. The man is crushed with disease so that he will be made to make himself an offering for guilt to God. My commentary explains what that means, what this means. It has nothing to do with a guilt offering of an unblemished ram of restitution for violating the Lord's holy things, unintentional sins, extortion or robbery. That's Tobias Singer. The Christian translation changes the word guilt to be sin, yet it has nothing to do with the sin offering of an unblemished lamb. The primary purpose of verse 10 is to make certain the animal sacrificial atonement and worship laws of the Torah cannot, Tovia Singer, cannot, to-be Christians cannot, God's primary purpose cannot be used for the man described. It is the only reason God would crush a man with disease, to make him his servant. You cannot offer an animal with defect, an animal that is blemished. So God blemished me. He afflicted me. You're not going to offer a ram that's got a disfigured right arm. No man will refuse God, and God does not need a man's permission to make him a servant. So why the cancer? He is God. In the book of Ezekiel, God seized him and made him suitable for the purpose of being a prophet to the Assyrian Babylon exiles in God's fire of refinement. This is Ezekiel chapter 3, verses 7 through 9. But the house of Israel will refuse to listen to you, for they refuse to listen to me. This is God talking. For the whole house, this is the description of the fire of refinement. For the whole house of Israel are brazen of forehead and stubborn of heart, but I will make your face as hard as theirs, and your forehead as brazen as theirs. I will make your forehead like adamant, harder than flint. Do not fear them, and do not be dismayed by them, though they are a rebellious breed. Basically, the whole world's going to hate me. 30% of the observant Jews of Israel, of that 30%, I don't know who the many is, and I don't know who becomes a multitude. He won't tell me. I'm sure it's going to be, for somebody at the end of his life, retired, God took my law licenses away, and everything else I own, this is a good way to be spending it. It's like a trilogy, the last part of my life. And it's in the scriptures, so I'm sure it's going to be good. This is Ezekiel. A spirit seized me and carried me away. I went in bitterness, in the fury of my spirit, while the hand of the Lord was strong upon me. What is that? Don't you think if you're in the hand of God, things are going to be going good for you? God's taking care of you. You know what Ezekiel would say? If you asked him, why are you bitter and furious? And he'd say, I'm in the fire of refinement, and bad things are happening to me. Very painful emotionally and physically. Fire of refinement. It's also in Job and Jonah and Moses too. He clearly went through it. I got about 4 references to that. The purpose and meaning of Isaiah 53, last paragraph, is completely changed if it is not fulfilled by a particular man, defective in body and blemished in the day of the Lord. That's not Israel. They're not afflicted by God. Show me how many Jewish people are born disfigured. Show them to me. And tell me when it happened. And when they were blemished. Oh, was that when they told their first lie? Okay, everybody on the earth is blemished. In the day of the Lord. By making himself an offering for guilt that has nothing to do with restitution of the souls of all Jewish men and women at one time, or has nothing to do with the animal sacrificial laws of the Torah for the forgiveness of sin or guilt by the sacrifice of an unblemished lamb, sacrifice of a human being. You really think, Christians, you want to stand before God and tell him you believe he's a man, a God, of human sacrifice? I don't think you do. I know him. And basically, you would be gone from his presence if you even uttered such a statement. And yet that's your belief, to be sin-free and go to heaven. You ain't going to last long there. God says they're not going to heaven. No Gentiles forgetting their sins. No Gentile is going to heaven. The heaven is for the Jewish people, and it's in the Hebrew Bible. And they can read it and figure out what's going on with the new JPS 1985 and these videos. And they can convert to Judaism. Kind of like the Spanish Inquisition, huh? Believe in Jesus and his resurrection, or we're going to torture you and kill you. Isn't that what you did, Gentiles? Back at you. I would share this video with any Christian or Gentile I know. But then again, I bring the wrath. And I bring the reckoning to the rabbi. And I'm working real hard on that too. Yeah, they still got their heads stuck in the sand. We'll see what happens. See, I know God's behind all this, so I really don't have to worry about it. Forgiveness of sinner guilt by the sacrifice of the unblemished lamb, the soul of Jesus, or unblemished rams, the restitution of the souls of 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust, according to Rabbi Toby Sr. about Rishudim. And yes, Toby, this is in God's book. You're going into the Bible. I was prophesied in the Bible by Isaiah and by God for a prophet like Moses. And Elijah returns in the day of the Lord, the only man specifically taken to heaven. Ask me something about heaven for my proof. It's already in the book. All you got to do is go to keithmccarty.wordpress.com. And you got to go through Messianic Era versus Day of the Lord, the life of God's righteous servant, and then you come to this book. All the writings are God's. It's all Scripture. Isaiah 53 and the day of the Lord. Okay, this is what comes up next. I told you this was in several sections. And I hope I can do it with less parts. But I'm stuck on 30 minutes at a time. It was 11 for chapter 21 before. I think we're on 4. The next part 4 will be the remnant of the 13 tribes return. 10 lost tribes is a myth. It's a fabrication, and it's a total ignoring of God's word in Israel that's in the Bible. He says the Judaites, Benjamites, Manassesites, and Ephraimites, the largest tribes, except for Benjamin, they were the smallest, but that's where Jerusalem is, so they get mentioned. He's just mentioning the biggest tribes. He didn't leave anybody out. Well, that brings you to 8 and 4, Mr. Singer, Mr. Skoback. What are they doing settling in Jerusalem if they're lost? And it's right in front of you. I sometimes wonder, do they just read the Bible one time and then they go to the Talmud and teach whatever the people of antiquity taught? Or did you just change it on purpose because you thought it'd be a better anti-missionary tool? And you knew you were lying and making things up. World exaltation. You can't possibly believe that. If you do, I don't ever want to see you or talk to you. 2 billion Christians disavowing Jesus. Are you kidding me? You ever met a Christian? 2 million Muslims? Have you ever been to the Middle East?